Hey Camp Abilities Tucson, this is Coach Erin. I know you're used to seeing me in the tandem videos with Coach Casey, but today I'm going to be teaching you another sport that I really love, which is volleyball. I did play volleyball in high school, so it's definitely a sport that I enjoy, just like tandem cycling. So today, the first thing I want you to do is make sure that you have some space around you. I do want you to know that I'm inside right now, partly so you can hear me really well, and because it's so windy outside, it's not really going to work to do this outside. You probably don't want to practice volleyball inside. I wouldn't be unless if I had a better option, I would be outside. So I'm going to show you this inside, but it's really better to try to do this outside unless you have a lot of open space in your home where the ball is not going to bounce and hit anything, and you have a tall ceiling, because even me hitting this ball, if you can hear that, I am touching my ceiling just by holding the ball in my hand. Not ideal. So just think about that when you're talking about trying to practice some volleyball. You need lots of space. You don't want breakable things around you if you're inside or outside. And you want to make sure you have a ball. This is not technically a volleyball that I have. This is actually more of a playground ball, one of those ones that's pretty bouncy. This is good though because it gives you enough of a cushion that it's not going to really hurt your arms. If you have a real volleyball, that's great too. Either works. But you want the ball to be kind of a good size, around the size of a basketball, the same size. That's kind of the size traditionally a volleyball is. What we're going to talk about today is one of the most important basic skills in volleyball. So when we're talking about a volleyball game, it's played on a court that's about the size of a basketball court, a rectangle, so shorter on two ends, longer on the other two ends. It's split exactly in half by a net that stands fairly tall. So the top of the net is about 6 feet tall. The bottom of the net is about 3 feet tall, so there is open space below the net. But whatever side of the net you're playing on with your team, you don't want to cross that net. Usually in a volleyball game, there are 6 players on each side. So there's 3 players along the net on either side, staring at each other through the net. And then there's 3 players in the back of the court, directly behind the 3 players in the front, if that makes sense. So 6 on each side, split into rows of 3. 6 on the other side, split into rows of 3. One of the most important moves, one of the most common moves in volleyball is called the bump. The bump is a way to quickly get the ball and point it into a direction that you want it to go to the next player on your team to hopefully eventually get it over the net. In volleyball, you only have 3 chances for your team to hit the ball before it needs to go over the net. Otherwise, it's not good. So a bump can also be used just one time to hit it and get it back over the net to that other team. So it just depends. But most of the time, the bump is going to be your foundational skill in volleyball. The way I want you to set yourself up before we even do anything with this ball, I'm going to set it down, is I want you to put your arms straight out in front of you. If you have your palms of your hands down, I want you to flip them over so your palms are facing the ceiling. I want you to slowly move your hands together until they meet. And I want you to put one hand on top of the other. You might not quite know which is most comfortable yet if this is your first time. So you might need to kind of try it both ways to see which is most comfortable. Either way, you're going to put one palm of your hand underneath the other palm of your hand. You can hear them kind of smacking together. Again, your arms are more straight out. I like to crisscross my thumbs then on top of each other as well, on top of my palms. So this is my position. Now, while I did say keep your arms straight out, they're not extremely tight and straight out. They're not so straight out that they're starting to hurt or they're bending backwards. No, we want the elbows to be a little relaxed so that when you're ready to hit, you're going to straighten them a little bit and then they're going to relax a little bit. But again, this is the position. Hands out, one palm underneath the back of your other hand, palm up, Maybe you crisscross your thumbs if that's comfortable, and then you're ready to bump. Your legs. Most of the time when you're playing volleyball or lots of sports, your legs are not standing straight up. You're not standing straight up and down like you're stiff and waiting for something to scare you or something. You're going to be actually having a little bend in your legs, in your knees, just like you did in your elbows. So I want you to kind of spread your legs, feet about hip width. So they shouldn't be as close together as your knees, maybe a little bit wider, in line with the outside of your body. If you touch either side of your body, maybe that's about where your feet line up with on the ground. You can even go a little wider if that's comfortable for you also. And again, we're going to do a little bend in our knee. We don't want our legs straight, straight, straight. We want a little bend. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the ball. I'm going to get into our position. I'm going to throw the ball up, and I'm going to show you kind of how you bump. And then I'll talk a little bit about where you touch your arms when you bump. So again, my legs are spread out. My knees are a little bent. My arms are going to be out, touching each other. And then we're going to hit it. I'm going to turn a little bit to the side so you can maybe see it a little bit better. Ready? Okay. So let's talk a little bit about where we want the ball to hit our arm. So we want the ball to hit on our arm, and we want to be able to control getting the ball back wherever we want it, either to our own players or over the net. We ideally would like the ball to strike anywhere on your open arm between your wrist and your elbow. Again, this is the underside of your arm, because remember, our arms are flipped over. So ideally you want the ball to strike between your wrist and your elbow. This is because this is really the flattest part of your arm. If the ball hits a different spot that's maybe a little more bumpy, it's going to do something weird like bounce all over to the side, and we don't want that. The most control is going to be right here on the flat part of your arm between your wrist and your elbow. So let's try that one more time. I'm going to get in position, bend my knees, have my legs a little bit apart, arms out and next to each other, and then I'm going to bump it again. Okay, so hopefully the single bump is something you can kind of practice, especially if you've never done volleyball, and kind of get in the habit of learning that skill. You want to make sure that you're feeling like you really have control of the ball. So sometimes some people that are really good at volleyball can just keep bumping the ball to themselves right up in the air and just keep going and going and going. And that's how you can kind of know that you have control over it. Kind of like that, where you do multiple bumps in a row to yourself, not to anybody else. So camp, I want you to practice that skill. Try it out with the single bump just to yourself. And our next video is going to make it a little bit harder. So look forward to that. See you soon.